Hello. Thanks for joining us. We're kind of coming at things a little bit different today, and it's an introduction to a new YouTube site that we're going to put together. We're hoping that it'll be Field Archaeology 102, and it's going to cover things like displays and meetings and people and speeches, Indian mounds, getting out and around in Ohio. So today we wanted to bring you to a really special museum. This one is in Coshocton, Ohio. It's been here for quite a while. We're going to walk you through the archaeology segment of this museum. And I chose this one for a lot of reasons, but it's really well done. The displays are wonderful, they're chronological, and they're comprehensive. So they follow the time periods perfectly, and they show all the tools that you would expect to find during those time periods. This is good for you, because you may never have seen all the tools in one spot that come out of a culture. So this will be helpful, and maybe there'll be some fun things that you take, but more importantly, maybe this will be a fun place that you want to visit with your family. If you ever travel through Ohio, or you come in from out of state, this is a great place to hang out. So we're going to go on in the Native American part of this museum, okay? So, by the way, the opener was my videographer with an attitude problem, but yeah, we'll get things under control there shortly. So come on in, let's check out this together. You know, there was a movie that came out a while back, Night in the Museum. Who doesn't love Robin Williams, or who doesn't love a museum? This is the Johnson-Humrickhouse Museum in Roscoe Village. Both are an incredible experience, well worth your time. To visit this one, there's a small fee, and it's a very small fee to get in here and to see it. And I love it. I just love the way it's laid out. Now, this is a big room full of Southwest Native Americans, pottery, basketry, pine quills, porcupine quills, and even some stuff from South America. But we're going to hone in on the prehistoric man. So come on over. These are just display cases, and we'll spend maybe a little more time on some of these display cases than others. But when we think the earliest prehistoric people in the Americas, or even in Ohio, where you live, we think of what we call the megafauna. Those are the big guys, the guys that didn't make it on Noah's Ark. So these are the big animals, the mastodons and the mammoths, which, by the way, we still find bones and teeth even in this county. Recently, we did a dig on where I live, just south of Mansfield, and we're getting teeth and bones. So it goes on everywhere. But just for fun, you can see the difference between the teeth, few of the bones, and then considering the megafauna, and there certainly were a lot of different types of animals living during that time period, but there was a group of people, a time period of people, a culture that pursued them. And I think we underestimate their genius. You know, I don't think they spent as much time chasing a mammoth as they did snaring or catching rabbits and squirrels and things like that. So looking at their tools, and that's what we're going to do now. We have a couple displays that are really good, comprehensive. They show you the lances that they used, but then they also show you some of the tool types. And what you're going to see is some diversity in the flint. Most of the flint is Coshocton County flint. And when I say most, it's almost every bit of it is Coshocton. But we're right in the heart of the flint pits of Ohio. So you would expect that the prehistoric people were actually using, for the most part, the flint that was mined right here. However, they had to have flint when they made their trek across the Americas to get here. So we find Onondaga flint, we find Indiana hornstone flint, we find a lot of exotic flints outside of Ohio that this time period used as well. So as we slide on around, the next thing we're going to run into is a dilemma. When the museum was built, it was commonly thought that there was a middle time period between the Paleo and the Archaic time period, and they just simply called it the Plano time period, where they stuck in all the lancelets, the stem lancelets, the unstemmed lancelets, And there's some diversity within those tool types. And so now with carbon-14 and looking at sites where these things have been excavated, we've discovered that actually these were not late paleo, that it looks like these may have actually been late archaic. So looking in here again, you'll see the diversity of tools and a few cores and some knives. Square knives typically come out of this culture, but this is just a great representative of these things. And then from the paleo, now remember I said this one is out of place because when it went in here, they thought it was much older than it is. We are constantly learning. So out of the paleo, we move into the next culture. In my opinion, this is the really, really, really busy culture. A lot of stuff happened. You had a long time period of around 9,000 or so, give or plus BC, all the way up to about 1,000 BC. And stone tools really got rocking and rolling during that time period. The full grooved axe came into being. The concavities began to appear in different stones, and even the types of stone tools began to evolve during the time period. Now, in this frame, you're going to see what's called an atlatl. They made one to give you an idea of what these look like and how they might have used their banner stones as counterweight balances to have their spear, which would hook into the hook, and then they'd be able to throw. There's a game called Highlight that's played. I know I watched matches in Florida, but it's kind of Central South American sport. But if you can visualize a highlight glove and how they would snap it and send those balls easily over 100 miles an hour, then that lattice is kind of thrown the same way with that extra kick or that extra snap. All archaic, and there's a wide diversity of tool types, and probably I could just say notched points. And what fun, what fun. And we date these out of fire pits, out of dig sites, living sites where we can get carbon-14 dates so that we're pretty confident, where these things fall into the time scheme. Again, slipping through the early archaic into middle archaic and just slipping on down to late archaic. And then we're going to join the woodland culture. But it's fascinating to see the stone tools, and it's really a lot of fun to see the diversity of the tools, like an axe, or like a hammerstone, or a grooved hammerstone. And they've done a really good job of that. There's enough here to get you excited, but another reason to visit this is so that when you find a half of a piece of broke out in the field, it's nice to see what they really look like. But you need to have a vision of what you're looking for too. And I think this will give you a good wide range of thinking of what might be in the fields where you're walking. So let's still stay with our progression of archaic and move toward the end of the archaic time period. One of my favorite time periods is Ashtabula. And it's right around 1000 BC because that's when steatite started to really appear in Ohio. And for a lot of you people, steatite as soapstone on the top of wood burners because it holds heat so well. So steatite began to appear late archaic time period. But again, you'll see the diversity of axes, of grooved, ungrooved hammerstones, of blades. And I do need to comment on the points that you see. They have notches, and years back they were called arrowheads, thinking that these went on a shaft and were shot through the air. I'd like to meet somebody that could shoot one of these things through the air of the size of the shaft. And but what we know now is that these were all various knives. And all you got to do is go into Mom's kitchen and look at all the diversity of knives that she has, and you'll understand the diversity of knives that they had as well. So celts came into being during this time period, and we can even ID our celts to the cultures. So one thing that we find a lot of in Ohio and pretty much all over, I find them around big fire pits, are the cupstones. And recently we had a flint knapper in Ohio, kind of figured them out. We always thought they were cracking nuts with these things. But he said, no, I take my billet after it gets all beat up napping, and I put my billet in one of those cups and twist it back and forth, and it comes out brand new. He nailed it. So you don't have to have 25 degrees after your name to figure out what some of these things were. Cupstones are just wonderful. They're out there. For me, I tend to find them around fire pits or fireplaces. Oh, geez, I've been here so many times, and I still get goosebumps when I walk in here. So let's follow the progression of the tools. You'll see that they get a little more sophisticated, a little more modified. You get mortars and pestles. You get roller pestles. You get some really wild-looking pestles up here. I heard an older guy a long time ago say, you know what, they didn't use these two right here, pestles, with their hands. What they did is they held that, they put their leg around it and turned it upside down, and they used it for a mortar. And it just really reshaped my whole thinking on the thing. But basically, we're still figuring things out. Interesting stuff. I see a birdstone up here. I see a tubular pipe. And I have found tubular pipes out in the fields. They're still findable. They're still out there. The slate's still out there. One of the things you're going to have to learn is, are they a field break or are they a prehistoric break? And my experience is most of them are prehistoric breaks. They've been cut and snapped. We're getting later into the Archaic, and you'll see that we have some bone tools. It doesn't mean that they didn't use them earlier, but when you're in the ground for a long time, you start to disintegrate. But we're seeing now the bones that are coming out of rock shelters, that are coming out of fire pits. And I love it, because now we're making our transition from late Archaic, which now we know the lancelets fit right in here. And then you hit what's called the Ashtabula points. And that's pretty much when we start seeing the steatite in Ohio. And then you slip into the Adena Hopewell culture. We're going to look at a couple of displays on both of them. Again, this is so much fun, and I hope that you really take the time to look at these, get to a museum, get some books where you can get familiar with it. I know one fellow was asking, he wanted to see more pottery, see what it looks like, because he thinks he's finding fire-cracked rocks, and he's not sure if it's pottery or not. But good example of Adena slate pieces, Adena blades, final stage preforms, even some celts, and some of the beautiful wide range of flint. And I would say that pretty much Flint Ridge really came to the top during the late Archaic, early Woodland, and Woodland time period. The Adena seemed to really put the pedal to the metal, and they really started bringing it out of the ground. And we find it extensively in the Hopewell culture as well. So moving from the Adena into the Hopewell, I know that people like to categorize and put things in boxes and say, this is this, that's that. My experience says that the Adena and the Hopewell was one culture, just like Rome. You have early Rome, middle Rome, late Rome culture in Europe. I think with the Adena, or I call it the Adwell culture, you have the early Adwell, you have middle, and you have late. And various things are going on during those time periods. In this display, you see some of the beautiful crafts and workmanship that's coming out of it. You're seeing some more Flint Ridge. These are not platform pipes from Coshocton County, but these are examples of the platform pipes that came out of some of the mounds down by the Ohio River. More examples of Hopewell, more examples of Hopewell and Adena celts, Hopewell slate, and then we think about cores and the blades that came off the cores. A lot of books that are written simply show you the Hopewell cores, and everybody thinks that's what a core looks like. Well, guess what? It's not necessarily what a core looks like, because every culture used cores. The Hopewell used a lot of Flint Ridge, and those are really pretty. So moving through some of the specialties that came out of these cultures, I think that you had a group of medicine people or shaman who, in my opinion, were probably the Hopewell. And for whatever reason, they had a corner on the trade market. Either they could cast incredible magic spells, or they had some reason that they're able to get people to trade things with them. So we find all kinds of exotic material. And in this next case, you're going to see some of it. Coppers, it appears in the Adena, but really in the Hopewell culture. And then you have caches through all cultures with all types of tools, with all types of flint. And these are pieces that you would expect to find in a Hopewell cache. You've got a Harrison County chert or Indiana hornstone leaf blade, came out of a mound down by the Ohio River. You have breastplates and you have ear spools made out of copper. You have bear teeth that have been drilled. You have pottery, mica. And I'm showing you these and I'm calling your attention because if you find some mica like this in a field, time to put the brakes on, slow down and start looking. You may have a significant fire pit or a village or a lodge where that comes from. And no matter where you hunt in Ohio, there's always a big surprise around the corner. And this next display is a big surprise that came out of Coshocton. And if you look up on the map, you're going to see actually the city of Coshocton and where this wonderful cache was found when they were doing some digging. And out of this, there were over 300 blades that were dug out, and here they are. And you'll see they range from very small to very big, 6, 7, 8 inches. There were a lot. These would be probably what we call the final stage preform. The next move from here would be to either use them as is, as a knife, or maybe even put some notches in it and do whatever they're going to do. Okay, moving beyond that, we're getting into the late woodland now, where pottery just was everywhere. All kinds of pottery, all kinds of tempering, all kinds of lips on the tops of their pottery, handles, all kinds of stuff going on. And then we find things that are just a lot of fun. We find stones that are being drilled, stones that are notched. Some of these, I think, are incorrectly called anchors. They're pebbles that simply have a notch, or crude notch usually on either side. But I've found them everywhere in Coshocton County. Bones were being used a lot. Seeds, we're finding them in fire pits. A wide arrangement of pipes. And you're going to see more pipes in a minute. But you're going to see the style. You're going to see the triangular points. You're going to see what we call the glacial cane, right on into that really exciting time period. The triangular points, we are very confident went on a shaft and were actually shot with a bow. Very confident of that. The time that took place, give or take, some people want to use notch points and say they were actually putting those on shafts. We have no evidence of that. You can imagine all you want, but we do not have evidence of that. However, we're pretty confident that somewhere in the area of 500 AD, the triangular points went on shafts, went through the air. We find burials with triangular bones or triangular points sticking in the bones of dead prehistoric people. So we know that these things were being used. Come on down, and we're going to close it off right here with the actual mixing of the late woodland with pretty much the settlers and the pioneers and the trappers and the hunters that were coming into North America. And they brought iron and copper goods and traded to the prehistoric people. You have some gun flints up there. And then you have different iron axes and things. You even get some brass axes that were traded to the Indians. And then later into that, you get into your clay pipes. Ohio had some big clay pipe factories down near the Ohio River. Trade beads. Everybody in Europe wanted all the furs that were coming out of North America. So they would trade basically anything with the prehistoric people or the Indians, the Native Americans, to get what they wanted. So you're going to see a wide range of pipes that suddenly appeared during that time period, all kinds of beautiful beads, iron goods, all the reasons why you want to go out and hit the fields. But it's good to see this stuff because it will stretch your brain, get you looking for things, preparing you for things that you wouldn't otherwise know were there. Example, copper. How does it oxidize? How does it patinate? What color is it when it's been in a field? I found a a Spanish coin that was dated 1666. It was green. I picked it up because it was beautiful green. So when you learn these things, it's going to bring in a whole different level of success to your field walking. Well, real quickly, we took you through a neat museum, and I hope that you will get a chance not only to visit this museum, but museums in your area, and maybe your archaeology group, or you might want to get involved, work with them, help them with displays, help them to update their displays, or help them get material from their county. And then you're going to have to work out some legal agreements that if anything ever happens, it comes back to you or somebody in particular. Again, all this is the leading you to archaeology, or what we're going to call field archaeology 102. Be totally separate from what we're doing. We're going to try to run 2 lines of video for you guys, just so that you can have fun, like we're having fun. Thanks for coming along and for joining us today at the Johnson-Humrickhouse Museum in Roscoe Village, which is in Coshocton, Ohio. This is a family place, a family event, and I hope so much to meet many of you down the road. Take care. We'll see you later.